Some context with Minister in the Presidency responsible for electricity, Dr. Cyril Ramaphosa.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me take the opportunity to extend my warm and sincere greetings to everyone present here. Special mention, Premier Winde. Thank you very much for being such a gracious host. Also to extend greetings to the MEC of Economic Development and Finance from the Eastern Cape, MEC Mvoko, and also MEC Foslow, the MEC of Economic Development from the Northern Cape. You can see that it's a tripartite of subnational governments that are making every effort to ensure that as a country we fully exploit and benefit from this energy carrier that is green hydrogen. And I really want to thank you immensely for being trailblazers, for leading the way, of course, within an overarching framework that is articulated at the national government level. And just to thank DG Balen in the presidency for your stewardship at an administrative level to ensure that there's a fully articulated conversation around the opportunities on green hydrogen. And of course, the subnational governments are going to draw from that articulated framework at the national government level, domesticate it, or if you like, give it provincial nuances. DG Sogoni, the DG of the Eastern Cape, has joined us here. DG Bekebeke of the Northern Cape, DG Dr. Malila, DG of the Western Cape, and also the Director General of Science and Technology is here with us. And also just to say thank you very much to private sector players. Just to mention a few, Sasol for being an indispensable partner in this conversation, but also making sure that the work that we are doing find significant traction. It can be translated in many ways, and we're beginning to see the commercialization of this potential. And of course, Anglo-American, one of the first movers, last time the first inaugural summit, we were able to showcase the work that the Anglo-American is doing, and also the development of the Hydrogen Valley. And also to say thank you very much to BMW. I'm sure they'll be showcasing some of the work that they've been doing jointly with the Anglo-American and also with Sasol. I'm making this point because you can see that there's a convergence of public sector players and private sector players. There's a meeting of the minds. And once we do that, there's significant explosion in relation to this potential that is green hydrogen. I think Premier Winde has succeeded in mapping the background against which this conversation is happening, the second iteration of the Green Hydrogen Conference. Of course, initially it was meant to announce our intention, just to say that we are going to use this platform as a meeting place of public sector players, if you like, policy makers and private sector players, those who can see the future ahead in relation to green hydrogen, and seek to explore areas of convergence. But we are taking it to a different level, as the Premier has indicated. We are going to use this second iteration, as he has said, as a scorecard, and I want to say, if you like, a balance sheet of the kind of progress that we have made and the areas that requires intervention to be able to lubricate our efforts going into the future so that we are able to realize this potential. I must also indicate that we joined by Minister Aluendo, the Minister of Minerals and Energy from Namibia. I think his presence is profound. It's profound in many ways because we're beginning to articulate, if you like, this African perspective in relation to what it means to have this energy carrier. And my view is that there's a need for us to provide, if you like, African dimensions or characteristics to this conversation, and it's something that we are doing very well with Namibia, and I'll say one or two things about that. So his presence here and his team is significant. Of course, Premier Winde makes a point. The backdrop is against the unmet energy demand, what we refer to as load shedding, Of course, the end is in sight. I have to mention that the end is in sight. Well, the lights have been on throughout the weekend. I mean, it's a significant progress. Thank you very much. It starts with small steps. Before we get to 365 days of no load shedding, there must be 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Huh? Just like if you want to lift the World Cup, the Rob Ellis Trophy, you win the quarterfinal, you win the semi-final, and then we'll win the final. That's how it works. You don't just lift the trophy. That's the point. And then the other one is the occurrence of extreme weather conditions. So I think it's important, as he has indicated, that in every crisis there's an opportunity, but I want to add the following. You must take that opportunity within the life of the crisis. And I'm going to articulate at least my own version. It's a subjective version on what could be some of the dimensions of taking advantage of that opportunity. So the first one is that it's important that we take what I refer to a Pan-Africanist approach. I think it's important that we must have a full appreciation that, as Premier Winde has indicated, I think together we go farther. Individually you can go faster. But I think if we begin to aggregate our effort, we can see that there's significant opportunities that presents. And as some of the literature says, is that Africa could potentially produce 50 times more energy from renewables than the world estimated demand. And in the course of doing that, you are addressing other dimensions outside just the decarbonization agenda, moving away from dirty fuels or fossil fuels, greening, if you like, the future. But you are addressing also the issues around universal access, because there's another dimension to the conversation. It's about universal access, Africa realizing its potential. So I'm saying that in the totality of the framing of the political, of the problem statement rather, it's not just a narrow conversation about green hydrogen, but it's about the political economy of energy and how Africa can rise on the back of this immense energy carrier. And we can see that this also there will be significant achievements in relation to costs, and that talks to energy poverty. Because remember that in many parts of the world, the industrialized developed north, they have a different problem. While the energy is available in abundance, they are able to generate more than what the demand is, but that energy is not affordable. So it's important that we find new sources of fuel that makes it, if you like, cheaper, so that the vulnerable, excluded, and marginalized, they also benefit from this transition. And I guess that it talks about our own elaboration as Africans on what constitutes just. So just is not just a unidimensional measure of the reduction of the impacts on the atmosphere and therefore issues around climate change, but it's also about the socio-economic impact. On the back of this energy carrier, we're able to propel our rise and also we're able to industrialize on the back of this energy carrier. And then to the point I made earlier on, I think there's significant opportunities. So as Premier Winde has indicated, there's opportunities first for corridor development. And I think in this conversation, really is the Cape provinces and also extending to Namibia and then also parts of Angola. So what's the point that I'm making is that the conversation around what are some of the opportunities that present must undermine both the political and administrative borders. It must be a broader conversation on how we are able to cooperate and collaborate with the Namibians as a start, and of course we are having similar conversation with the Angolans around the corridor development. And then there's the complex. The complex talks to, of course, the location of the PGMs in the northern part of the country. I think the last time I read is that between us and Zimbabwe, we've got over 80% of known deposits of PGMs. And just earlier on, when we were having a conversation, Mr. Miller makes the point from Anglo-American that the PGM employs about 172,000 people. So if you see the transition from internal combustion engine, which uses a significant part of PGMs, to new sources of propulsion, is going to interrupt, if you like, the demand profile. So it's important that we are able to shift that demand in line with the needs with regards to green hydrogen, and essentially we are protecting those environments. So the point we are making is that there are those corridors that are developing. And then there's concerns are raised about what it does to some of our resources that are in short supply, in particular water. And one of some of the literature, reputable literature, makes the point that the coastal countries have a potential to use seawater to produce green hydrogen, and therefore eliminating water stress concerns for less than 5% additional energy. So I'm just saying that science is going to help us to resolve a lot of this. So you can see that there's multiple matrices that must be in sync to help us to resolve this question. And of course, there's risks inherent in any choice that we are making, and it's important that we are able to fashion responses to mitigate and or eliminate those risks over a period of time. And then the second one, so is a Pan-Africanist view, is an issue around diminishing resources, how best we can exploit that, balance the conversation so that we accept that there are risks inherent in some of the choices that we are making, especially water, and that science can help us to resolve that problem. The next one is industrialization on the back of this potential. Some work has been done that if you had to ensure that the smelting of African iron ore is locally, it's local, you can create up to about 215,000 jobs. We can have a conversation about the precision of the numbers, but the point I'm making is that there's significant opportunities on the back of localization. So the protection and exploitation of critical minerals should be an indispensable part of the conversation, so that on the back of this endowment we are able to industrialize. And then you resolve another question. You resolve the question of unemployment, and then you resolve the question of skills, so that the levels of unemployment we are experiencing is not structural unemployment. We are producing for the market and also for the future. And then there's also issues around the science and technology, our ability to innovate. So the point I'm making is that there's significant opportunities, and you can see they're not just localized to South Africa, many parts of the continent. And that's why that Pan-African view is important on the determination of standards. I think it's a conversation that must be had. And then there's issues around financing. I think it's a major impediment. Of course, there's a big pool of liquidity sitting with the private sector, but we are not the only ones chasing after that private sector liquidity. So we must move with speed. There's some degree of agility. The state must lead, must not be retrenched, but the public sector must, the private sector must come into the picture. As the special envoy to the German Minister of Environment makes the point that the government is in the business of manufacturing opportunities, and you use your policy instruments to do exactly that. And the point I'm making that it's important that we are able to enter into that conversation, I think, as major players in this fraternity of green hydrogen, just to find what are those financing instruments, the appetite for risk, especially upstream. There's significant amount of investments that have to be made. And that's why in the context of our green hydrogen commercialization strategy here, our DFIs are going to play an important role. And the CEO of the IDC, a very prominent player, Joanne Bates, in that conversation. Part of the solutions we are fashioning is the investment by the DFIs, the IDC, and also the DBSA, to mention by the few, but I'm sure there's a greater fraternity that can invest in that, so that they were able to address the risk appetite. And I think the state must also play a role there as, if you like, first loss and de-risking the projects and allowing them to go through the next milestones of the project life cycle. And you can see the numbers are staggering, that the potential will require essentially about $1 trillion in cumulative investments over a period of time measured until 2050. That's a significant ticket, and I think it requires for us to think creatively around what is possible in that area. And then the other one is making energy accessible. So the point I'm making is that one of the things that undermines our ability to exploit this resource is on the cost curve. You can see, I think someone was saying, it's about 3 times the cost of grey hydrogen. The costs are prohibitive, but with investments in technology and innovation, the cost curve will come down. And I think as the initial stages, the industrialized developed countries of the North, they are prepared to pay that price premium because they've made their intentions known with regards to net zero path, the nationally determined contributions. So there's a flurry of interest from developed countries, and they are prepared to pay that premium. And I think we must exploit that. And exploitation in this instance, not in a negative sense, but mutually reinforcing, meeting the desires of the industrialized North, exploiting our resource, investing that back into research and innovation, and driving down the cost, and over a period of time, then the poor can benefit from this resource. So that it's not a conversation that is of the elite and the enlightened, but there's significant traction that is realized by everyone. And then there's issues around the reconfiguration of the energy ecosystem, really on the distribution side. I think that there's these Ds that requires attention. The first one is decarbonization, so it's documented, if you like, what dirty fuels does, the issues of climate change is devastating the poor, disproportionately affected, the rich can protect themselves, adaptation, mitigation can make these investments, but the poor are left to their devices. So it's important that we take that into consideration. Then there's a democratization of this, a democratization dimension in this conversation. So the issues around willing so that there's a geographic dispersion of these opportunities. We are able to move the electrons to the point of use or need, so that, if you like, there has to be an equitable distribution of the benefits across the country. The geography, I mean, and the geography really extends just beyond the South African borders. We are decentralizing, so essentially we are getting to a point of distributed grids that can also benefit, I mean, outside just supporting the green hydrogen agenda, but it can meet the energy needs of local communities. And of course, the major constraint is transmission. Once there's the distributed generation, you are undermining that strain. And then there's digitization, the modernization of this infrastructure. I think it will be important in that conversation. So I'm saying that in the African context, those Ds are important, that we carry them through in the conversation as we address this. And then there has to be, I want to argue, wall-to-wall regional cooperation. We are starting with Namibia. The conversation will happen with Angola. You are addressing the issues of financing, but more importantly from here is the issues of regulations and standards. I think it must be almost, we must universalize it across the region so that we are not pitted against each other. A common appreciation of what this potential is, and the value of science, I think, will come into the mix. The rest I've spoken about them. And then we must address the structural constraints. I've spoken about water, and then the issues around what Sasol is doing, pioneers on Fischer-Tropsch technology. So the point I'm making is that some of the advantages that we have is that the technology already exists. We are resolving what the energy source is. And I think on this score we are doing exceptionally well. But I think it's important that we keep on reminding ourselves on those structural competitiveness. So these are the advantages that we have. Outside the locational advantage, if you had to do any radiation atlas, the Northern Cape is a renewable energy complex of the country. The Cape provinces, great wind speeds, but there's other things that we have done over a period of time. And then we have made the point, we have approved the country's investment strategy. We are elevating what we call frontiers. These are industries that will shape the kind of economy that we envisage going into the future. And one of those is green hydrogen. So the conversation is consistent with our interpretation of what the future holds and the complex of the South African economy. And then in conclusion, I think we have to address those policy levers. So the point I'm making is that the state must not be retrenched. The state must be at the forefront, determine both the direction and velocity of this investment, manufacture opportunities to borrow from what the special envoy has said, and then make it possible for private sector to unleash its potential. The issue around the export market, I've spoken about the, if you like, the prohibitive cost element. I think the industrialized nodes will be prepared to pay that premium. There's a parallel lane domestic market. I think there's a healthy market, the issue of green steel, green cement. We anticipate that there will be carbon border adjustment mechanism that can undermine our potential to access the lucrative market of the industrialized nodes. So really the point I'm making is that it is important that we have this appreciation. So in this conversation, we must factor those in as we unleash the potential. And I really want to take the opportunity to invite the President, who has been the principal sponsor of this effort that we are making. I mean, he has taken the lead, and that's why part of these efforts are concentrated in the Presidency, so that he's got direct sight and, if you like, appreciation of what is happening. And he has expressed over time the need for us to rethink and reimagine a South African economy, and part of the energy reconstruction and recovery plan was to make sure that we take advantage of the potential of a reconfigured, if you like, economic complex in the country, and green hydrogen is one of those. So I want to take the opportunity to invite the President, who's joining us virtually, to guide us on South Africa's view on how we are going to take this potential forward, working with private sector. Like I said, private sector is indispensable to this conversation, and we are confident that working together across the administrative and political boundaries, across our own sovereign and narrow interest, Namibia and Angola, I think there's huge potential. So, Program Director, I think I was meant to do that. Oh, okay, I'm not ahead of myself. So the President will speak to us. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you.
Program Director, Minister Ramaphosa, Premier Winde, ministers from here at home and a number of other countries in our sub-region. It gives me great pleasure to be in your presence and to address you in this, the second South African Green Hydrogen Summit. I am sorry that I'm unable to be there in person. It has much to do with your summit competing with the Springboks victory last night. But I am where I am, and I'm sorry about that. I've spent the better part of the morning trying to speak to President Macron, just to commiserate that we have not been able to talk, and we talk often about the highs and the lows of both of our countries, and I'm sure that we will be able to talk later. But South Africans are reveling in this incredible success that our boys have achieved in Paris. Many of them felt that we should declare today as a public holiday, and I declined, and I said we will only consider that when they win the final, at which I will personally be present. This is an extremely important summit for our country and our people. South Africa aims to position itself as a globally competitive player in this dynamic and growing industry. The South African investment strategy, which was approved by our cabinet earlier this year, lists green hydrogen as one of the big frontier strategic sectors that is expected to attract foreign and domestic direct investment. The hydrogen economy has a prominent role to play in our country's just energy transition, providing employment and support to vulnerable workers, communities, and small businesses, and indeed also giving a great impetus to the growth of our medium and big businesses. It has been estimated that the hydrogen economy has the potential to add 3.6% to our gross domestic product by 2050 and approximately create, at the minimum, 370,000 jobs. Now, being South Africa, where jobs are scarce and our unemployment is significantly high, this would be no mean feat. In fact, it would be a major boost to lowering our unemployment levels. We must act with purpose to harness the potential of the green hydrogen economy. Some 64 countries, accounting for 89% of global emissions, have announced net zero targets by 2050. It is anticipated that global green hydrogen demand will increase sevenfold by 2050. And I'm sure that some of these statistics have already been put forward to all of you by Premier Winde and by Dr. Ramaphosa, the Minister of Electricity. For the world to limit global warming to less than 1.5 degrees Celsius, green hydrogen will need to constitute 10 to 20% of the global energy mix. South Africa has committed to ambitious emission reduction targets. Our own estimates indicate that green hydrogen has the potential to remove 10 to 15% of our domestic emissions and contribute to our nation's long-term energy security. The inaugural South African Green Hydrogen Summit last year focused on scaling up regional cooperation around green hydrogen. This is being done through the African Green Hydrogen Alliance, which includes a number of countries on our continent, they being Egypt, Kenya, Mauritania, Morocco, Namibia, Ethiopia, Angola, and South Africa. Last week, I visited Namibia during our Binational Commission summit with President Hage Geingob, and we spent a considerable amount of time talking about this green hydrogen endowment that both our countries now have. We agreed that we would continue to play a key and a leading role in ensuring that this endowment leads to the growth of our two economies, and indeed together with all the other countries that I've mentioned. The Alliance aims to harness Africa's potential in developing green hydrogen industries. It aims to make joint calls for technical support, funding, and market access to international public and private sector partners. This is precisely what we spent a considerable amount of time talking about. The inaugural summit laid strong policy foundation. This year's summit has a dedicated project focus, providing an opportunity to demonstrate the degree to which products have matured and advanced. This is also an opportunity to demonstrate technological development and advancements in the green hydrogen space. Close cooperation between public, private, and financial partners will be key to unlocking Africa's green hydrogen potential. This will enable mass-scale domestic and international demand for green hydrogen and increase cooperation on green hydrogen production, storage, and distribution infrastructure. If investment is significantly scaled up, and we expect it to be, green hydrogen can deliver the equivalent of more than 1/3 of Africa's current energy consumption and increase our collective GDP, improve our clean energy supply, and empower our communities through access to energy. Proper planning, regulatory and incentive schemes are critical to mobilize private sector investment. And this is precisely what we in the public sector are focusing attention on to make the entry and the investment of the private sector to be much more conducive. And it is also in this regard that we are willing, ready, and prepared to listen to what the private sector has to say to us in the form of suggestions, in the form of ideas, so that we are well synchronized in our thinking together as the public and the private sector. Of course, not forgetting the views of the communities surrounding whatever installations that will be put up. South Africa has deep capital markets with world-class conditions for generating renewable energy through solar and wind, which are key drivers to the production of green hydrogen. Funding green hydrogen projects will require innovative, creative, and new financing structures sourced from multiple stakeholders. If there ever was a time for innovation, packaging investment instruments to enable us to solve the challenge of lack of capital. And may I add, I'm often told that capital is not the problem. The problem is just being able to package the instruments through which investors can invest, and also to package projects properly. And once the two are matched, I've often been told that then we get to dance. In June 2023, South Africa concluded a heads of agreement with the intention to launch the South Africa H2 Fund. This is an innovative blended finance fund that will facilitate the development of a green hydrogen sector and circular economy in South Africa. South Africa H2 aims to secure $1 billion in funding raised directly in South Africa or via indirect channels. The fund is a partnership of private and public enterprises, both sourced locally and globally. And we're finding tremendous interest in this fund. Since the last summit, we have made advances towards building the green hydrogen industry in our country. And these include a joint declaration of intent with the German government focusing on market access, offtake opportunities, and value additive benefits in the production of green steel and green fertilizer. South Africa has also signed a memorandum of understanding with the Netherlands as an off-taker for green hydrogen derivative products. It is encouraging to note that a memorandum of cooperation will be signed at this conference by 3 multinationals in the green hydrogen mobility space, namely Sasol, Anglo American, and BMW. This demonstrates forward movement and great progress. Sasol will serve as a supplier to Anglo American and BMW as part of their focus on commercial and passenger fleet transformation. These are important initiatives within the context of carbon border adjustment mechanisms. As I conclude, allow me to thank all the partners and the sponsors that have made this summit possible. A special mention should go to Anglo-American, BMW, SASO, the IDC, and GIZ. I wish business and government delegations at this summit, as well as other community-based representatives, well, as we work together to shape Africa's green hydrogen agenda for the benefit of our economies and societies. And I also want to thank presence of ministers and delegates from a number of countries right across the world and our continent. May you have a most fruitful and productive conference. Thank you very much. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President and Dr.
Can I go
Ramaphosa.
home now?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Mr. President and Dr. Ramaphosa, for the context that you've given us. We've been hearing since the morning about cooperation that supersedes both politics and borders, and the next event on the stage is a demonstration of that. It's a signing of a memorandum of understanding by the Eastern, Northern and Western Cape that's going to be moderated by DG in the Presidency, Pindile Baleni. Please may I ask them to make their way to the stage and their panelists as well. Thank you.
To His Excellency, the President of the Republic, President Ramaphosa in absentia, ministers present here with us, Minister Ramaphosa and Minister Alwendo from Namibia, Premier Winde, MECs, MEC Mvoko and MEC Fosler, the Directors General, my colleagues who are here, captains of industry, executives of private sector, in particular Sasol, Anglo, as well as BMW, our international partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. While international decarbonization is being driven by direct climate change and policy impacts, there exists opportunities to engage with new and sustainable value chains in order to domestically decarbonize and create new export products. Green hydrogen will play a significant role in the country's transition. It will establish South Africa as a future energy market, global trader, securing foreign direct investment, earning foreign income, and creating economic growth and development. Partnerships in the private and public sectors are key enablers to South Africa's green hydrogen economy. So today, we've got the Eastern, Northern and Western Cape provinces who will sign a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on developing the nascent green hydrogen industry in South Africa. And ladies and gentlemen, this cooperation is mandated in Chapter 3 of our Constitution that calls on us in government to ensure peace, national unity and indivisibility of the Republic, underlined by the principles that inform national security, economic unity, as well as national norms and standards. So this collaboration between the three capes aims to facilitate a coordinated approach to leverage the potential of green hydrogen in the region through this MOU, which highlights areas of cooperation, including the development of inter-provincial green hydrogen collaboration mechanisms, that will be informed by the green hydrogen commercialization strategy, which is about to be approved at national after extensive consultation, the development of shared logistics infrastructure and manufacturing facilities, and the creation of shared marketing and funding portfolio to promote the South African green hydrogen initiatives, and the development of a shared program to enhance human capital and to create social awareness within the green hydrogen sector. These jointly identified areas of cooperation provide significant credibility to this important initiative. A rigorous evaluation framework will be instituted that will assist us in assessing and gauging the effectiveness of the outcomes of the initiatives and highlighting the areas of success, offering insights for continual improvement and strategic refinement. Ladies and gentlemen, the Southern African region's potential enabling of access to deep ports, ore bodies, or rail lines to transport ore will facilitate the production of hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives that can be exported and utilized for mineral processing, thereby interfacing with global value chains. This, in short, was what is outlined in the collaboration, and the collaboration in the MOU represents the strategic priorities aimed at advancing the green hydrogen sector. Collective action in these areas will harness the potential of green hydrogen, promote sustainable growth, and position South Africa as a leader in this emerging industry. Now, in the presence of the political principals, I hereby hand over to the Provincial Directors General to sign this groundbreaking memoranda of understanding. The three Capes. Over to you, colleagues. To my right. That's where the signing is happening.
Let's continue with our program. The next memorandum that's going to be signed is one of cooperation. It's with the private sector. We heard earlier on about the importance of the private sector in working with government, which is supposed to create an enabling environment. I'm going to please ask Priscilla Maberane from Cecil to make her way to the stage, while Craig Miller from Anglo American, Peter van Binsberg from BMW, make their way to the stage to sign their memorandum.
His Excellency, the President of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Ministers of Electricity, South Africa, Minister of Mines and Energy, Namibia, Premier of the Western Cape. I still feel that anxiety in my stomach this morning. MECs of Economic Affairs, Northern Cape and Eastern Cape, members of various local and global government representatives and partners for South Africa, captains of industries around the globe, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's truly a pleasure and honor to have all of you here to witness a significant milestone in South Africa's journey of developing a sustainable and exclusive hydrogen mobility ecosystem. Before I start, I think it's appropriate that I extend SASO's deepest appreciation to our partners, the IDC, represented by Joanne, who have been an anchor, a supporter, and also a sponsor of the industry. And we could not have achieved what we've achieved if she did not take a personal leadership and supported and guided us as an industry in this journey. Thank you, Joanne. It is also appropriate that I recognize Honorable Minister. I still struggle with it, because we've been on this journey with the presidency over the last 3 years with this team to shape, debate, and dialogue the enablement, but the potential, including the risks of non-pivoting at scale and taking advantage of our opportunities. And Minister, thank you for your support. I think it's also important to recognize that today's event follows two high-profile developments in the green hydrogen technology in South Africa over the last 2 years or so. Firstly, the unveiling of Anglo-American Platinum 510 Newton prototype truck, which made history for being the world's largest hydrogen-powered mining hauling truck. And secondly, beginning of this month, Sasol, Toyota, and Air Product's first on-road demonstration of a proof of concept for hydrogen mobility ecosystem. In this era where climate imperatives and economic and social impacts are critical, it is also important that as ecosystem partners, we put our hands together, our minds together, and emerge and develop innovative solutions to take our country, our continent forward. As such, we believe as partners that hydrogen is one of the few pathways that will emerge, as particularly in the decarbonization of the hard-to-abate industries, as a key enablement for decarbonization. But at the same time, it's also a key enablement for reindustrialization. This morning, as we were talking with the Honorable Minister, we made it very clear that for South Africa to be successful, or the region to be successful, it is going to be important that we use this opportunity to reindustrialize our minerals and resources. The region is blessed with abundance of resources, as has already been spoken, particularly renewables, equally minerals, where there's PGMs, copper, etc. And it is our responsibilities that we leave a sustainable legacy in order to ensure that we create new industries and inclusive energy provision at affordable levels in a region that is experiencing energy poverty. So as partners, we do believe that the entire region is dependent significantly for economic mobility, for competitiveness, to connect the various corridors. Heavy-duty mobility and mobility as a whole is critical. As a result, today's partnership is a demonstration of few partners that have actually invested in enabling such an ecosystem for South Africa to be successful. Let me start first with SASO. As you can understand, I have some sort of interest in marketing ourselves, and as a marketer, it's at the heart of what I do every day. So, first of all, from a SASO perspective, in line with our purpose of innovating for a better future, we have successfully commissioned a 3-megawatt solar farm at Sasolburg, which is one of the key industrialization hubs and clusters in the country that requires sustainable energy at scale for decarbonization. And that 3-megawatt farm currently produces 150 kg per day of green hydrogen. The senior vice president who was responsible for making this possible is with us today. In the near future, into 2024, we intend to enhance this and to produce 5,500 kilograms per day of green hydrogen that we can start to decarbonize and commercialize. But we are not new in hydrogen development. At SASO, we have pioneered over 7 decades our Fischer-Tropsch technology, which utilizes green hydrogen as well as carbon sources. Our technology is agnostic to any feedstock, including hydrogen. We currently produce 2.4 million tons of green hydrogen per year. And we do believe for us to create sustainable industries to pivot over time in a meaningful and human-centered manner, that we will continuously drive and monetize the resources of South Africa. And as such, our partners, BMW, comes with a different value proposition. Their commitment is to help us to build a hydrogen economy, industrialize it in South Africa, speaking on your behalf, in accelerating the production of the green hydrogen ecosystem. And as such, we do believe that their value proposition today, in what Craig will share later on, will show the other possibilities. On the other hand, another company that has its rich participation in South Africa, Anglo-American Platinum's view in the mining sector, is that we should make use of possibilities of green hydrogen development to accelerate and unlock the potential of the mining sector, and ensuring that we can actually leverage fuel cells technology and expand our economic activities. So, as I now mentioned, these 3 companies, which basically demonstrate their commitment to the country and to the region, that also recognizes that the success of the green hydrogen economy is dependent on ecosystems, partnerships between the private sector, government, and a global partnership, is here today to highlight that it is possible. I know it is, as our father has always said, it always looks difficult or sounds difficult until it is done. And today is that moment where we say it is possible. However, we do recognize, Dr. Ramaphosa, that this journey will not be possible if government, with its partners globally, does not recognize the challenges, particularly the social imperatives, that South Africa is facing and the region is facing from a social economic development. So we do believe that our partners that are here today, as you witness this momentum, as well as the time that we are in, that will collectively support developing markets and accelerating industrialization and unlocking value and making it possible again for our rural women, our youth that is unemployed, and so that we can leverage our minerals in a human-centered and deliberate manner. So, as I conclude, I would like to call upon our partners, Craig, as well as Peter, to join me on stage as we sign a memorandum of cooperation. Oh, is it that table? No, I think it's there. Sorry. Yeah, to join me on stage as we sign a memorandum of cooperation. And for that memorandum of cooperation to be successful, our leaders here present will join us later for a photo shoot to commit to the regulations as well as the impetus such as incentives to make this successful. Thank you.
The last part of the program for this morning is going to be a high-level panel. Masofa Moshosho is going to be moderating that. I'm going to ask him to make his way to the stage in order to introduce his panelists, and they can make their way to the stage just before lunch. Thank you.
Our next event before the lunch break is our high-level panel. If I could invite Minister Ramaphosa, Minister Windo, to make your way up. Yeah, thanks. Priscilla. Craig. Peter. And the DG for DSI, Dr. Ndra. Will everybody see you behind the podium, Priscilla?
I was trying to hide. I'll move this side.
No, it looks the optics looks terrible.
I know.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for being with us this morning. Maybe if we can, has everybody got a microphone? We'll get a roving mic from the back. You'll share. Thanks, Stephen. Minister Ramaphosa, if I can start with you. Last week we had